you could pay $200 and get an instant list of leads that you could use to make $60,000 a year, would you do it? Because that's exactly what this lead generation and enrichment flow allows you to do. And I'm going to show you how to set it up step by step from scratch so you don't need to pay anyone else to do it. And I'm going to show you exactly what this thing does. So first we scrape a list of leads from Apollo. Then we extract their LinkedIn usernames. We get their email addresses, validate that they're good, you can deliver to them. And then we get their LinkedIn profile and latest posts. We run them through artificial intelligence and store some kind of personalized insight in Google Sheets. You can then use this list of leads for something like a cold email campaign using Instantly, where you're effectively pitching people your service. So imagine you're a business owner and you close 60 additional leads per year. That's 5 a month. Well, if you're in high ticket B2B sales, for example, your average value per lead, I'm sure you business owners have a lifetime value metric in your head, might be $1,000. You can make $60,000 easily with this automation. And if you're someone selling them, it's easy to justify the pricing model being 15% of the first year revenue impact. So since it's a revenue generating automation, it's easier to tie your deliverable to the value. All right, now I know it looks complicated, but I'm gonna walk you guys through step by step here. You're gonna wanna create a new workspace in your N8N account. I'm using the cloud version, so I'm paying like 24 bucks a month or so to be able to use it in my browser easily, no additional setup. And let's add our first step. Everything here is triggered from a form. So we'll say on a new N8N form event or on a form submission. We'll title it leads search. We click add form element here and populate these fields. In our case, we want 3 fields, a job title, the location, and the number of leads that we want to scrape with placeholders, and we marked as required for each. And what does this do? Well, if we execute the step to test it, it pulls up a form with all of that information we just filled in. Let's say we want to search for photographers in Austin and we want 10 leads. We hit submit. We see the form is submitted and we get the output on the right side of the screen. So everything in N8N is input, configuring the node that you're currently on in the middle, and then output on the right. Cool, so we have the job title, location, and number of leads in our N8N flow now for use later in our flow. But where are we going to find our leads? So that's where Apollo comes into play. So Apollo IO is just a database full of leads that you can pay to use, and to call Apollo, we're going to submit an HTTP request. So don't be intimidated, you just got to fill out the fields here and just fill them out one at a time so they match mine. URL is that. And by the way, if I'm typing anything here, you can also pause the video, take a screenshot, and throw that into AI of your choice and tell it to transcribe the text. Authentication is basically like your account. So how is Apollo IO gonna know who's contacting them? These leads aren't free, and you know someone's effectively got to pay for them. So who is that? Well, that's us. We're gonna do generic credential type, select header auth, and then you'll need to create a new credential. And all this is your API key from Apollo IO. And I'm gonna show you where to get that right now. So you'll need to create an Apollo.io account. It comes with some free credits, but I've upgraded to the lowest paid tier. Then you can come into developer.apollo.io/keys. Create a new key, name it and describe it in some way that indicates what it is so you can refer to it later. And I'm just naming mine delete this because if I were to expose my API key to the internet, anyone can use that and run up my usage. So a little word to the wise there, always hide your API keys or delete them after you expose them accidentally. So let's hit copy, go back to our flow, that goes in the value. And the name here is x-api-key, all lowercase. Hit save. Now let's execute the step to test it out. So as a result, I got a lot of responses here, and that's because we didn't pass anything into Apollo.io. We didn't tell them, hey, we want it to only be a photographer from Austin, Texas, and to give us 10 people only. So it just went ahead and gave us everything. And how are we going to do that? We're going to send headers and a body along with our API call. So you can copy these parameters. For the headers part, we're sending these. For the body part, we're sending these. We're using JSON here, and here's where we pass in the location, the job title, and the number of leads we want from Apollo. So now if we hit execute, right, we're bringing the input in from the previous step. We're calling Apollo saying, hey, give us these leads that we've specified, and we have a much shorter list of the leads that we want. As I'm going through and testing stuff, I like to pin it so that I don't have to run this again. A lot of these tools work based off of credits or just a fixed dollar amount like prepaid usage. So every time you run that thing again, you're using more and more credits. So this way I'm saving the data in my flow over here just for testing purposes and just save some money. So this is good, but it's all in one big item here. We want to separate this into our 10 items, right? We have 10 leads. We want to separate into 10 items so we can work with the data easier later in the flow. In N8N, there's a bunch of different ways to do data transformation, but in this case, we're just going to go with the split out node. And you see here in the input from Apollo, we have this people field. We want to split out by people. And we get 10 items here. If we look at our output in another way, we can see the 10 items are sorted by person, right? Here's one person. Here's the next person. Here's the next person, etc. Don't forget to pin that thing. So this is still more data than we actually need for this flow. We only need a couple of fields. So to do that, we're going to add an edit fields node. So let's think about what we want to bring forward for the rest of the flow here. What's important? So we can simply take the ID, drag it in here. The ID is going to be our unique identifier. That's the Apollo ID. Let's add another field, which is name. Let's take LinkedIn URL, the title of the person, the job title. And from the first employment history item here, let's find the organization name. So this is most likely their current organization they're working in. And see how we have all this data again from Apollo in this previous step? Well, if we execute now, we'll be left with just a short list of only the stuff we care about for our 10 leads, 10 items here. Pin it. So that's great, but this data isn't doing anyone any good out in N8N land over here. So we want to store this in a Google Sheet, but we're not going to make one from scratch. We're going to copy from a template. So we already have a template for you. Go ahead and open this link. It'll bring you to this page, and what you want to do is go to File, make a copy, name it whatever you want. We'll call this one My AI Leads, make a copy in My Drive. Now this is in our Google Drive. We can close out of the template, and let's remember this name, My AI Leads, because we're going to add this to our flow. So we'll add a node, search for Sheets. We want to append a row in the sheet. This part will be red for you if you've never set up a credential before. All you got to do is hit create new credential, sign in with Google, pick the account that you've copied the Excel sheet to, hit continue, connection successful, good to exit out of all this stuff. And mine is named Google Sheets account 5 right now, so I'm going to rename that. I'm going to name this Demo Sheets Credential 1. So I'll remember that as we're going through this. So we have our data from our leads over here. We want to pull it into Google Sheets. How do we do that? We append rows within a document. So we click the drop down here. Remember mine was named My AI Leads, so we click that one. The sheet is just a tab inside of the document, right? So down here. And once you hit the sheet, you'll be asked to fill in all the values you want to send. Get a little bigger there, but you want to drag in the ID, the name, the organization, title, and the LinkedIn URL. The other thing we're going to do is mark these drop-down fields here pending by default. So extract username status is pending, contacts scrape status is pending, profile summary is pending, and this last one we just have unscraped. So just make sure your values match this. So now I'm about to add a row into my Google Sheet, but before I do that, let's delete all of the rows in our template. So we're starting from scratch, delete the rows. Bam, a completely new spreadsheet. Let's hit execute step. And we should see these values from Apollo passed into our Excel sheet, and there we have it. So here's all the stuff we got from Apollo IO. This is the ID, it's a unique identifier we're using for each row here. We got the name, organization title, URL. So now we've successfully got our Apollo IO leads and put them in a Google Sheet. Next thing we're going to do is populate this LinkedIn username column. How we do that in N8N, we want a trigger node here. Let's add a node in Google Sheets. we want to scroll down to the triggers and say on row added. So when a new row is added to the sheet, which we've just added 10, this new flow will kick off that will extract the LinkedIn username. Now this credential is different from the other Google Sheet credential we set up, so you'll need to create a new one and just log in with the same account. Once you've done that, you get connection successful, you can close out. So it's saying, hey, we're gonna check every minute for new rows from the document My AI Leads. Let's pick our sheet again. Again, we're triggering on row added. Let's fetch a test event. And here we have the 10 items that we added earlier. Now we want to populate this column, but only if the extract username status is pending, right? If it's already finished, we don't want to run this automation again. So to do that, we're gonna add a little qualifier in our N8N flow. We're gonna add a node, look for Google Sheets again, find the get rows in sheet step. Remember we created that demo sheets credential. We need to select that, select the right document, the right sheet, and we wanna add a filter and only return items where extract username status, this value here, is pending. We'll say pending. Let's execute the step and see if we should get all 10 items because they're all pending. But once your Excel sheet is more full, then only some of them will be. I see I got 90 items in the output. That is wrong. We want to hit settings here and just click execute once. Then when we execute this again, we should only get, bam, 9 items. I think I've been deleting them because my recording button has been off and on deleting these. Sweet, so that looks good. We've gotten only the rows that are marked pending. Now we want to extract the username from that URL there. How we can do that is to run some custom code. So we click the plus, add a node there, hit code in JavaScript. We replace the code with this. Again, you guys can copy this. Here's another important step for N8N. The mode is very important. You can either choose to run once for all items, so you only run it once, so you'll get one item in the output, or you can run once for each item. For us, we want 9 different items, so we'll select that and hit execute step. So we have our 9 items here. Okay, now we've got our LinkedIn handles. We don't want to add a new row with our LinkedIn handles because that'll cause something like this. So what we want to do is add a step in our N8N flow. If we go to Google Sheets again, that updates our row in a sheet. Remember to choose the right credential, same document, same sheet. Then we get a column to match on. That's going to be our unique identifier, the Apollo ID. You can hit expression here and paste in these values that I'm using, but that requires you to name the actual past step, the same things that I'm naming mine. So what you could also do is actually open the bunch of input data we have to choose from on the left and pull in Apollo ID, and it'll bring in that for you. So if yours is still the default naming of like get items or whatever, get rows, then it would still be green for you. So green means it can find it. It's good. If you don't see green, you might need to execute some steps to get data in your inputs. And in the LinkedIn username, we can pull in the LinkedIn handle that we've just cleaned up here. Let's execute that. And fingers crossed, we should see the LinkedIn usernames in their respective spaces. And actually I forgot to update this pending to finished. So the extract username status, we want to be finished. We can simply execute again. And there we have it. Everything turned green. It just overwrote all of the data, so nothing is out of place. So far, we've gotten leads. We've extracted the LinkedIn username. If you guys have stuck with us this far, please subscribe and like the video. You're a couple minutes away from building this really powerful automation that can totally change your business or change your life, so stick with us. Next, we're gonna get our leads' email addresses, validate if we can deliver emails to them, validate if they're good emails. And we're gonna update these 2 columns here. We're going to update the email, and it's going to be finished here, unless it's an invalid email. To start, we need another Google Sheets trigger on row added. So we can right click that guy, duplicate it, bring it nicely in line, There's no changes we need to make here. It's the same trigger account, it's the same sheet and document. So remember up here we said bring forward all of the rows that extract username status here was pending, right? And then we filled in the blanks. Now we're going to look at where contacts scrape status is pending and only handle those rows. So for starters, we can just duplicate this guy as well, pull him in. Duplicating is good because we've already got the setting to execute only once. Let's unpin the data from here because we want to grab new data. Before we get confused, let's open it and rename it to the right column that we're checking. We've got the right credentials, etc. We're looking at the different column though. Instead of the username status, we're looking at the contacts. And for everything that says pending, indeed, we want to bring it forward. So let's hit execute. It'll run the previous stuff. Looks like we're down to 8 items again. So yeah, apparently my keyboard shortcuts when I'm stopping and starting recording are deleting some rows, but I'm sure you guys won't have that problem. So remember we used Apollo.io to get our initial list of leads? Well, we're also going to use something similar, so we can simply duplicate it, down here to get our list of emails for each person. So whereas our URL for the first one we were searching for people, now we want to match, so we'll change the URL. And you'll want to make sure, I'll scroll through slowly here, that your fields match mine here. So let's execute this thing. Let's run up our Apollo bill a little bit more. We got our 8 items successfully. And I do see some emails here in our data. But Apollo doesn't always get it 100% right. You know, emails come and go, domains come and go. So we want to add a step that we can check if this email is valid. The first thing we want to do is add a code node so that we can extract only the emails. So we replace that stock code with what I have here, hit execute, and you'll see we should get one array, one item with a bunch of different emails. So it's good that we have it in one item now because we can pass it to mails.so. So it's another API we're going to call, and it's going to validate the emails for us. See here it's confirming this address accepts email, which is very important if we're starting a cold email campaign. So you'll go to mails.so. It comes with like a certain amount of free credits, but I've purchased the lowest paid tier and I have a ton of credits. And then after you've done that, you can go into your settings, go to API keys, and you'll want to create a new API key. I'm naming mine delete all these for the love of God because I'm exposing all of them. Let's copy this thing, click it just to copy. Back in N8N, we're gonna make another fun HTTP request. Here's the URL we're using. Then you're gonna wanna click headers and body. Fill in x-mails-api-key, paste your value in. For the body, you wanna type in emails, and then for the value, we're gonna pull in all of the emails, our array of emails here. Then let's execute. I got an error there. This is supposed to be a post request. So what does this actually do, right? We're calling mails.so for something. But what we're doing is we're starting an analysis. So we get an ID for it. We're saying, hey, it's started, but we don't actually get any result. The status is pending. All that means is we need to write another HTTP request. Let's just duplicate it to save time. And if we open this one up, it will not be to post, it'll be to get the result. The URL is the same, but at the end of the slash, we pull in our ID. Get rid of the space there. So this is saying, hey man, we sent you a request, we want to get the status of this exact ID analysis. We do want to continue to send the headers, because this is our API key, which is like our login, but we don't need to send our body information anymore. And here is our output. Here are the stats. So interesting. It's saying out of all 6, and here's all the data it's returned to check if these emails are validated or not. And as I'm going through, I'm naming some of my nodes. So get email validation results. Back in our canvas, we're going to add a wait in between the initial request to do the validation and our actual grabbing the validation to give it time to do so. So we'll hit plus, hit wait, oops, not waity, wait. Here's the wait amount in seconds. So let's just say 60. We don't need to execute this, right? It's just gonna make us wait here for 60 seconds. That would be a really fun video. So sweet, we know which emails are validated or not from this data, and now we want to take it from being one item to separating it out into all different items. And the other thing we want to do is relate it to our Apollo ID, which if you remember is our unique identifier here. So we cannot add anything to these rows until we give N8N a unique identifier to tell it, hey, here's the identifier that tells us what the row is, so put it there. And we can kill two birds with one stone here. Let's do code. We can paste this code in. Let me make this full screen for you guys. All right, here is the JSON for you guys to copy into that code node. Sweet. Here's our data now split out into all, well, it was 10, but I deleted 2 rows on accident, so 8 items. And not only that, not only do we have each lead separated out, their email validation, but we also have the Apollo ID, which will allow us to map it to one of these rows. Seems like a small thing, but it's a really big point in N8N that you have to bring this data forward and relate it to these entries. And again, we want to save this somewhere, so we want to duplicate our update row. We're going to update our rows with our email. So I've just copied this node and opened it up. Our Apollo ID is showing red because it's from another step. Let's pull in the last one from our last step. Let's pull in the email from our last step. You can see the email status here is verified. We're only pulling stuff that's verified. That's one of the things the last code node did. Email itself is down here, and the contacts scrape status. That's another thing we coded into the last node. We just pull in here and it's finished in this first items case. So now when we hit execute that step, it should add the email addresses and it should mark, instead of pending, it should be finished. So let's try it. Execute step. We'll watch it in real time. Bam. So after we hit execute step here, we should see that the email addresses are now populated and one is actually missing. So that means that it was an invalid email. So it kind of proves the point that, hey, the emails aren't always super reliable. Sometimes we just need to flag it as invalid, move on. And if you think about it logically, we have 2 more big steps here. One is about the LinkedIn profile. The other is recent posts summary. Now we're on the most exciting part, which is scraping the LinkedIn profile and posts. So to start, we need another Google Sheets trigger. The trigger is when a new row is added. And I'm gonna start speed running this a little bit. We're gonna get all of the rows that are pending and unscraped here. If I open this up, remember to check the credentials, but yeah, the filters are these 2 guys right here, pending and unscraped, just like here, pending, unscraped. Execute it, it's all the items that are still pending and unscraped. We're gonna add a set node next, set it to JSON mode, paste this code in here. We really only need the Apollo ID. You gotta rename this field too because we're gonna reference it in future steps. Make sure these guys are green in here, then execute step. Bam, we've got the Apollo ID, row number, and LinkedIn URL for every lead that is still marked as pending. Here's where our flow splits into 2 parts. One part where we grab the LinkedIn posts and one part where we grab LinkedIn profiles. And let's start with posts. So again, we want to create an HTTP request here. This one is going to go to Appify. So let's leave the URL and everything blank here. Let's just go to Appify. So Appify is basically a marketplace of software that runs online. And each of these pieces of software is called an actor. There's a TikTok scraper, Google Maps scraper, etc. What we're interested in are these 2 actors, the mass LinkedIn profile scraper and the LinkedIn profile posts scraper. Again, we're starting with posts. You want to come in here, make a paid account. You can see I'm on the lowest tier of the paid account and I'm almost running up on my limit there. That's just from testing this and other automations a bunch of times. But you don't need to click start here. So once you find this thing, API Maestro LinkedIn profile posts. For example, in the store, the Appify store, you can go to API, the API endpoints, and you want to find this step here, run actor synchronously and get dataset items. Usually I control F, search for run sync get dataset items. You hit copy, this will copy this whole endpoint with your API token in it, and you go back to N8N and paste it in the URL field. Let's send the body, specify it using JSON, copy and paste this thing. There's the green, right? It's simply pulling in from the left side there. Another thing we can do if we're adding a lot of these is batching. So we can add, hey, here's 10 items per batch, 1000 milliseconds for the batch interval. Just helps with some of the possible timing out. Let's execute it and see what we get. There we go. We've successfully passed in to our Appify actor to get all profile posts from all 8 of our leads. Now it's returned 37 items, so that tells me that it only returned a couple of posts per person. And where we specify that is down here in the JSON body that we're sending to Appify, to the Appify actor. We're saying if the username is that, return 5 total posts on that page, and in total, this is like a hard limit because it's really easy to run up your Appify bill. This is a hard limit of 5 total posts per person. Now we want to open this one, go to settings and hit on error. We want to continue using an error output. So what does that do? That adds a success and an error condition to our flow. So if there's an error, we want to say, hey, for this row, we're using the Apollo ID to match it. We're gonna set the summary scrape as failed and the post scrape as failed. So what does this do? When we get something that's failed, we'll just match with that Apollo ID, that unique identifier, and say that the post's status is failed. We were not able to scrape posts. But what happens if it succeeds? We want to keep each of these 37 items with the 8 leads. We want to relate them to each other, so that's what this code node is for. You can copy the code here. Let me move my face. You can copy the code for that step here. And what that does, let's open this code. We now have the Apollo ID here. So we did not have it before. Now we have it here. We can use this to understand which lead, this Appify data and all these LinkedIn posts, which row they relate to. Remember to set this to run once for each item. For our next code node, however, we're gonna put run once for all items. We'll rename it clean and map posts data. And if we focus on this, here's the JavaScript for that. Let's run it. And where we had 37 items here, we now are back to the 8 items. So 1 item per each lead with a unique ID with all of their text posts under their Apollo ID. So you see this person here, this is a different person, this is a different Apollo ID, and this is a different person, and we can use that data later. Another quick code node, we probably could combine some of these, but just to keep it simple, we want to run once for each item. We use this JSON code, you guys can copy. And if we execute it, we get essentially the same thing, but at the end, we get an all posts string, which we can pass into AI and say, hey, what are the takeaways of all of this person's recent posts? And let's do that now. We have the text in our all posts field. In the last node here, let's click add, and we'll go to OpenAI. We want to message a model. This is the last credential we have to set up. So you'll go here, say create new credential. All it's asking for is an API key. We get that by going to platform.openai.com/API-keys, hit create a new secret key. I'm naming mine delete this, my life depends on it. We'll create that. Copy that thing, go back here to the N8N flow, paste the key in and save. It's testing, it's successfully connected. And this is OpenAI account 5 for me, it might be different for you. Text, we want to message a model. From the list of models, we can choose GPT-5-Nano. So it's like one of the smaller, newer models. It gives really fast responses, but doesn't do a lot of reasoning. totally fine for our use case. When you move to production, you might want to use to a more powerful model. Feel free to copy the prompt I'm using. It just says, here are the recent LinkedIn posts from user. Summarize them in 2 paragraphs. Don't say anything else. Here is the data. Here's the all posts field that I referred to here. Everything else looks good. Maybe turn off simplify output, and let's execute the step. This step took a little while to complete. It went through all posts in all 8 leads, but here we go. Actually, the first one looks like it did not return any posts. The second one talks about their entrepreneurial ventures, etc, etc, etc. Now we have our posts summary from OpenAI. Let's go to update all of our rows with this new summary. So we add an update posts summary step. That's what we name it. Make sure it's the right everything. Column to match on remains the same. Apollo ID, we've grabbed from a past step here, like so. Recent post summary, we're getting from OpenAI. You can see JSON, choices, message, content. The whole thing is JSON response, choices, message, content. Drag that in, that's what you get. Then you mark post scrape status as scraped. And if we execute that, which we have, let's see what we get. Scroll over to the right here. This is what we've got. We've got the AI generated response. This is the first one that, hey, you don't have access to the LinkedIn feed, right? They didn't have any posts. So there's some improvement to do here where we can mark that as unscraped or failed, right? That would be a failed. But the automation should handle that, not me clicking here. But here is, it shows what the people are interested in, which is really important for writing cold emails. Everything is marked as scraped successfully. Let's continue. So we scraped the LinkedIn posts, put them through AI, and saved them. Now we're gonna scrape the lead's LinkedIn profiles. And to scrape LinkedIn profiles, we need to choose our other Appify actor, which is this guy, Mass LinkedIn Profile Scraper. We repeat the same step, find the API endpoint, run the actor, and get the dataset items. I've just cloned the thing above, and I'm gonna replace it with my new URL. And now instead of getting a bunch of posts from Appify, we should get profile information from all of our leads. So that was a success. We got 8 items with the names, headlines, etc, etc, etc. Anything you could want to know about someone's LinkedIn profile. So let's put an error handling node here to update the status to failed when we can't get info about a LinkedIn profile. In this step, it's a merge. It's just an easier way to do coding, and we pull in the get these unique identifiers step, and we get the result of the LinkedIn profiles information step. And they effectively do the same thing. They just link that. They link the data together. This time we're using LinkedIn URL, right? So it didn't exist in this. So we're using this merge to get the Apollo ID and also get the LinkedIn profile. So without it, we would not have this Apollo ID at the end of our output of this step linked to all 8 items. It would only be these 8 items from the LinkedIn profile, not linked to one of our rows. So again, we wouldn't know which row to add it to in here if we didn't perform this step. Next is the clean and map data code node, which I'll give to you guys here. It's the first half, second half. And this takes this raw output from our last step, right, which is a lot of information. We boil it down into just these key fields that we care about to pass to AI and to our Google Sheet. This next code step that we add, we double click in here. Here's the code for this one. And the reason we do that is because the output here, we're adding a profile summary that aggregates all the stuff we learned about the profile into one string. And where are we going to put that string? Into another OpenAI response. So we're going to tell AI, hey, process this raw data into something more insightful. And So for this OpenAI node, we've adjusted the prompt a little bit. We've said, please summarize the following LinkedIn profile. We said the purpose, no other fluff about, how to target them or anything outside of that. We're passing in the profile summary I talked about here, and that stringify profile data step. So that's our prompt. Here's the output we get. We get 8 different content pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? These content. That is an AI response for each of our leads. So for each of the leads, he read the profile information, ran it through AI, and we've got the super personalized summary. Only thing left to do here is to log the AI generated response in our Excel sheet. So we make a update profile summary step. We set our credentials, add the new sheet, match by Apollo ID, copy these guys in from, one is from our previous step. About LinkedIn profile comes from our content from AI, and we change profile summary scrape to completed. So if we execute this, what do you think is going to happen to these? Well, they better turn completed. So it looks like this one returned unscraped to the wrong field. It's okay, we can change that, but here we go. We've got the AI generated content for each of the summaries of their LinkedIn profiles. Really detailed stuff that we can certainly use in a cold email. So let's go over this thing from scratch real quick from beginning to end. Here's what we're gonna search for. We watch that flow happen and this get populated. They're the LinkedIn usernames. Here we're getting the email addresses. We have a little wait step there in between. There we go, that's all finished. Last step here is the profile and posts summary from AI. So starting with the posts. Now, after we've built all these nodes, we can come here and test them one by one and execute all the workflows, and then we get this complete list of leads with the AI enriched data inside. Everything is completed here. Now with N8N, you might have a little troubleshooting. So the first step is you'll want to just take a moment and read the text really slow. So read literally from the top to the bottom of the node, everything that's happening. Then you want to talk to AI, copy and paste responses you're getting to AI, tell it about the other nodes you've got going on, how they interact, and why what you're seeing does not fit in line with that. Always tell AI to search the web for you, so it can be like your own search engine. N8N also has an Ask Assistant button. It's down here on the bottom right. Sorry, my face is hiding it right there. And that is everything for the main flow here. The additional nodes here on the side were simply that if something is unscraped or unfinished, that it'll flip, or sorry, if it's failed, that it'll flip that switch back to unfinished, and that'll flag this flow to again try and do some more research and figure out if we can't validate the email or LinkedIn profile, etc. And that's it for today's video, so be sure to like the video if I was able to help you out today and subscribe so you don't miss another video. Peace.